Our panel is on open innovation, so that I guess sort of makes me the Oprah of open innovation. Actually, the two of us are often confused. You can tell that I'm not Oprah because I'm the one who doesn't have the house in the Caribbean, and Tom Cruise has never jumped on my sofa. But I wanted to introduce a really extraordinary panel. I was so thrilled whenever I found out who I got to wrangle on this thing, because several were good friends in the past already, and now I've made some new friends that I'm really thrilled to have in my Rolodex. To my left is Beth Comstock. She's the CMO of GE, and she's heading up their big open innovation platform called Eco Imagination, and has some remarkable results to tell us about that already. Next to her is Kohei Nishiyama, who's the founder of Elephant Design and of the new platform Kusu, who's doing really interesting things. You may have known of their collaboration with Muji and the great stuff that has already come out of that. Next to Kohei is an old friend, Marissa Mayer from Google. She's the VP of consumer products now. That's when I wrote about her, I know she was doing a lot with customer experience. She's the chief guardian. That would be like the Vestal Virgin guarding the Google homepage to make sure that no crap sort of messes up that pristine look and feel that we have come to love so much. She's also handling a lot of stuff with maps and lots of innovation things there. And next to her, Jens Martin Skibsted, who's the head of his own design firm, Skibsted, and a partner in a relatively new design firm called Kibisi with my pal Bjarke Engels, whose panel will be right after this one. I highly urge you to go over and hear him too. These are the Danes of design. I think the Danes are the new Dutch when it comes to design, and I'm looking for a lot out of the Danes these days. So what I thought we'd do, just to get started, because these are really newsmakers that I have up here with me, is do just a lightning round, because in every one of these companies, something remarkable has happened in the recent past. So I'm going to turn it over to you right away, Beth. 2 minutes. Tell me about Jeff Immelt going to the White House.
Yeah, well, Jeff Immelt announced on Friday he's joined, he has already been part of President Obama's Economic Advisory Board, and he's going to chair that now. And the real focus is going to be around U.S. manufacturing, high tech, and jobs. And it's a subject he's very passionate about. GE spends a lot of time, obviously a global company, so sort of understanding that balance between the global tensions and the U.S. tensions in terms of investment and jobs. So I think stay tuned, it'll be very interesting.
Just one question on that before we go on. Is that a full-time job for him, or is he leaving GE to do this?
He's going to still run GE. It's basically an advisory. He'll be running the board. As I said, he's already been on it. But he has the time and, frankly, the passion for it, so it will be an advisory capacity.
He'll probably kick a few of his responsibilities down to you. So
yeah, I'm sure that generally happens.
Kohei, what's happening in the world of kusu?
Well, we're going to carve out the service kusu, and we're trying to make it available outside of Japan as a company.
Okay. Marissa, Eric Schmidt, handing off to Larry. How did that play inside Google, and what do you think we're going to see going forward?
Sure. Well, for a long time, Google has been ruled with what they call a triumvirate, where Eric, Larry, and Sergey have all worked as three executives running the company. And then last Thursday, they reshuffled. So the three of them are going to continue to lead the company, but they're changing some of their roles. So Eric is becoming executive chairman, Larry is becoming CEO, and Sergey is now, the title is co-founder, but he's really focusing on some new special projects. So we're really excited about this. I think there's a lot of people speculating about the changeover, but we're really excited that we have a new leader here. And a lot of people forget that Larry was actually our CEO for the first 3 years at Google. So now that, I think Eric tweeted something like adult supervision no longer needed.
It's true.
Because Eric was always talked about as the adult supervision that was coming in to supervise Larry and
boys
Sergey.
Have grown up.
And so it'll be nice to see this new, more mature management style. So.
And is there anything that Larry is passionate about that now that he really has his hands firmly on the reins, that we might see a little more of?
I mean, Larry's passion has always been around products and user experience, and so he's going to be very focused on the technical parts of the company, on products, and on really making sure that we execute well across the board.
Okay, Martin, you have sad news for the women of DLD. You're getting married.
Yeah. I have just been down to Zimbabwe to pay my dowry, so now I can get married. So that's one news I want to emphasize. But another thing also I want to mention is that I'm also the founder of the Biomega bikes, and we now have taken over the license of Puma bicycles. So all the Puma bicycles are basically Biomega bikes, which are designed by Kibisi that you mentioned.
Fabulous. They are really great bikes, too. We'll see a picture of them coming up soon. I thought what we'd do, just to let you know sort of how open innovation has played out within these companies, I'm going to let each of the panelists tell us in, under 5 minutes what they specifically have been doing within their own companies. Then we'll talk about some of the challenges you face in pulling off the kind of open source kinds of things that they're doing. Beth, the EcoImagine thing has been huge, and you're moving into phase 2. How did phase 1 work out? Who's funding it? What have you got?
Yeah, we've been learning a lot and very excited. Certainly, we're not the first company to do open innovation. Some might argue a bit late into the game. I think for us it was a recognition that we don't have all the answers. A big advanced technology company, we spend about 6% of our $150 billion a year of revenue on R&D. So we have a pretty substantial technology investment. But realizing that the problems that we deal with, healthcare systems, energy generation, transportation, they don't require a simple answer. And so you need a kind of systematic approach. You need different people working together. And so as we were starting to look at smart grid and the issues that are going around the globe, we said, we don't have all the answers. We're working with a lot of partners. Maybe we ought to open this up and see where the best ideas are in the world. And so that was what sort of motivated us. I think also just a sense that maybe governments in many parts of the world weren't able to invest as much. And so we said, can we help unlock some of the value? So we teamed with 4 venture capitalists, and together we committed $200 million worth of funding. And we opened this challenge. It was built on our EcoImagination, which has been about a 5-year innovation platform. So we already had that process in the company, but we said, let's take it to the world. We created a web platform, and we said, world, bring us your ideas. We want ideas. We were very broad. We said we want ideas in how you generate energy, connect energy, use energy. So we intentionally cast a very wide net. And we gave it about 3 months. We were shocked with what happened. We didn't know what to expect, but we got about 4,000 business ideas, a wide range in variety and feasibility from 150 countries. What was interesting, about 15% of those ideas from universities and from students. And in November, we moved to do kind of like a first round, if you will, of venture funding, about $55 million. And then we awarded, so part of this was kind of a contest. We awarded sort of best in show ideas, giving research grants to some of the earlier startup companies. And I think what really surprised us was the community that was built. 100,000 people came and participating comments, voting, and this community that connected these startups and the entrepreneurs in a way we never could have imagined. So that was a real benefit. And after the first phase, we said, we're not done. First of all, 3,800 ideas. It takes 12 to 18 months to really evaluate. Are there others we want to fund? Are there partnerships we want to do? Not all of them were pure investment. Some of them are go-to-market. So there's one company we're investing in. It's a $100 million sales company. So I mean, it's a solar-based appliance and air conditioning company. They wanted scale. They wanted access to a global sales force. So those are some of the things that we're now starting to explore. And last week we kicked off what we're calling phase 2. Very focused in consumer applications. We felt if phase 1 was kind of the big systematic, it tended to be a lot of more behind-the-scenes software products. We felt that 100,000 people community had spoken. They were passionate. They wanted to be part of it. So we wanted to narrow the focus. We've asked for specific ideas in managing energy in the home and renewables. And we invited 12 members of this community that's created to help curate and help judge the ideas going forward.
Oh, so you're sort of rolling over the people from the first phase into the second.
Exactly.
That's great.
So that's it's exciting, and I'm happy to share. We've learned a lot. We've by far not done everything right, and happy to share that as we go forward.
Okay, great. We'll talk about the ugly underside of innovation in a bit. Kohei, if we're going to go from like mega company to something very personal and wonderful, and you're going to unveil it here. Tell me how kusu works.
Well, before I do that,
Okay.
can I just make a small present for the audience who has come here? Thanks. Okay. Thanks.
Wow.
So, it's a Lego kit that is only available in Japan at the moment. And I just wanted to give this to audience who have come here, and also people who are following the Twitter, DLD. This is genuinely made by user. Users submitted this idea on the web. 1,000 people had actually paid money prior to the production. And with that money collected, Lego decided to produce from Denmark and send directly to each customers who had made pre-orders. And inside the box, all these bricks are commonly available bricks. It's been automatically picked up. And inside here, there is a booklet with a picture of original users here. And also the name of 1,000 people who actually made this possible is printed out here.
Fabulous. That's great.
And I just wanted to explain quickly how things worked. Oops. Okay, so if you Google Lego, or if you go to any stock photo site, you would see a lot of amateur Lego builders who make stuff like that. And they're not paid. And there are a lot of people who've always wanted to buy a product like this. And my wish is to monetize all of these creation by using the power of people. And this has been one of the cases where our hypothetical way was proven to be true. And, sorry. There, back. The way we have worked out is that we collect pre-orders and license to Lego. And probably the next big present that I could bring to the world is not just the boxes like this, but the possibility of creators who have not been able to monetize their ideas because they're not patentable or they're not commercially available. Now it could be monetized using the platform like this.
So the idea, though, is that people who have ideas for products submit them to your platform, and people vote on it. How does that work? How did it get from, I have an idea for a widget, and I bring it to you? What happens then?
Well, there could be two ways. If you have something that you wanted to buy but it's not available but made by someone, you can suggest. For instance, the photo that I found, a locomotive made by Lego, I wanted to buy that. Then I can say, I wanted to buy this, let's gather up to make it happen. And we need 1,000 people to convince this person and also Lego to make it. Or you can promote your own work. I need 999 people to support me to make this happen.
And how many products have actually been commercialized since you started?
This is the first Lego product.
But other than Lego?
We have been working with Muji, which is a Japanese version of IKEA. It's a lifestyle store in Japan. We've been making almost 60 products with them.
And is it always 1,000 people, or does it just depend on how much it would retail for?
Okay, so Lego and Muji have a threshold of 1,000. but it could be lower if the manufacturer are much smaller.
Okay, and is this global or is this mostly in Japan?
Unfortunately, it is only available in Japan at the moment. But the aim is to make it global with this carve-out.
Okay, so that whenever you carve out the brand in, is it April?
Help to.
Is the idea at that point you go global?
Yes.
Okay, we'll be looking forward and bringing you our ideas. Marissa, from the very beginning, Google has been all about innovation, and I remember from the beginning it was like engineers have, 20% of their time that they can work on their own projects, and they're always, I've been in your headquarters in Silicon Valley, and there are lots of Legos around, so that, there's a lot of brainstorming going on. Evidently software somehow starts with Legos. I don't know how that works, but I'm sure you can tell us more about it. Is that still the case?
It is true. We have lots of Legos. And actually now the big Lego hub is New York, where we actually have Lego, people who specialize as Lego artists doing all kinds of Lego murals and all kinds of things. But at Google, our philosophy of innovation has always been about focusing on the user. And I think that open innovation is really an opportunity to bring the user into the innovation process and really get them participating. And I also think the other benefit of open innovation, and one thing that's dovetailed well with Google, is we really have tried not to segment innovation. This is why we don't have a special innovation branch or innovation wing of the company, because we really want it to be everyone's responsibility to innovate. And we have a lot of different ideas as to how innovation should work at Google, and I'll talk about just 3 of them and how I think they play out particularly with regard to being open. The first is that we really believe that ideas come from everywhere. Sometimes we'll have a new product that comes as part of a strategic initiative, but we're just as likely to take an idea from our users and turn that into a product. And that has been the case for things like Google Desktop, where people were constantly asking us, how come I can't search my computer as easily as I can search the web? Or even things like video chat in Gmail, where people said, okay, now that I can do phone calls in Gmail, and I have IM in Gmail, can I actually do video chat? And those ideas have come from users. Another piece is the 20% time that you talk about, which I really think about as a license to be creative, because people have a lot of questions about 20% time. How does it work? Is it every Friday? Does everyone stop from 5 to 7 p.m.? Is it once every 5 months? And the answer is yes, yes, and yes. Because for every person at Google, it's different in terms of how they use their 20% time. But it's really about a license to be creative and think about how can we build platforms that help people be creative, be that Android or Chrome, and making that an open source system where people can really ultimately participate and help us drive the product forward. Or even things like our project 10 to the 100. So when Google turned 10 years old, we announced a contest where we were going to give away $10 million to different causes and ideas. And those ideas were sourced by our end users. And the final idea that I would talk about is launching early and often. And it's funny to think about how that plays with innovation and really doing this in the open. But our strategy has always been to launch things early and often, have frequent releases, have lots of betas. We're somewhat known for our betas. And part of the reason is because we want user feedback, and we want to be able to incorporate that into our next product cycle and understand what should we build next, what should we do next. And that's something that's worked really well for us over time. And then the final thing that I would talk about is our approach to our platforms, in the case of Android and Chrome in particular, where we have these operating systems or browsers in the case of Chrome. We've been open sourcing them and really allowing people to, one, extend those platforms, but also develop on top of them. So we have lots of developers who are developing for the Android App Store. Now we have the Chrome App Store. And so people can think about how to really build on top of those different platforms and take them in new directions.
So before we hand it over to Jens Martin, who tracks when you're on Google time and when you're on, creative time? I mean, is there any way can you tell your boss, back off, I'm doing my thing now?
So there's no formal tracking, but you can tell your boss, really, this is part of my 20% time. In truth, a lot of times 20% time becomes 120% time. You've got your full-time job, but your 20% time is whatever you want to work on most. And so for a lot of people, it taps into passion, and they start working nights and weekends and just really giving it their all. At one point, people asked me to try and quantify the results of 20% time. And so I went through our calendar of launches, and I looked at all of our different features over a 6-month period. And I categorized, were these part of core initiatives, or had these come up through 20% time? And it actually ended up being 50-50.
Wow.
So, we really get, people say, well, are you just throwing away 20% of your productivity by letting people do just whatever they want during that time? But the answer is, it comes back to us many-fold over, because people get so inspired and they're so impassioned about those ideas that they really spend a lot of time on them, and a lot of our innovations come through that.
So as a Google employee, do I have to tell somebody this is what I'm working on in my 20% time, like as if I'm on sabbatical and a professor and I'm going to do a book on Shanghai or something?
It's entirely up to the person. So sometimes we actually have a way in our project database where you can file and say, I'm working on this as a 20% project, or you can keep it to yourself. A lot of people like to publicize it because people will join them. So it's more fun to work. It's more fun to work on a project often with a team. And so if you say, this is what I'm working on.
So you could sort of throw it out there and get a group working on a project together?
Because sometimes you'll have an engineer who says, oh, okay, I really need a UI designer to help me, or I really need some product management, or I really need someone to think about how we could market this. And so by saying, out on the project database, or by reaching out in a tech talk, something like that, you can actually get more people to help you with your idea.
Fantastic. Okay, Jens Martin, tell me how open innovation works at Skibsted.
Yeah, so we don't use it. That's the short answer. So, well, as I see it, open innovation is another tool in our toolbox. And so when we invent a screwdriver, we will not stop using saws and hammers. And so for us, this is just a screwdriver that's been invented, and we happen to work with other tools. I think if you look at innovation, I think there are 4 areas commercially where innovation is very interesting. There is, of course, technological innovation, and we've been talking a lot about social innovation, but there's also this blue ocean type innovation. So when you make JetBlue, you actually rethink a business model. Or there's also cultural type innovation. So when you have this Kraft durch Freude wagon, a Nazi car, then how do you reinvent it as a hippie Beetle? That is also another type of innovation. These 2 last innovations, I do not see open innovation performing very well, and these are 2 areas that we have been focusing on. But even within like core technological innovation, there will be challenges. So for instance, with the Biomega bicycle company, we had 2 technological very big challenges. Oh yeah, maybe I should put it up. Do you have that? Yeah. Okay, so not that one. Let me see here. How do I do this? Not that one. This one. Well, actually, the first generation of that one. It was made. It was bonded by 2 pieces of superplastically formed aluminum. No one had made a bicycle like that back then. So we were out to shop for superplastically formers. And it turned out that although you could get it commercially in Switzerland, England, and also partially in San Diego, all the other makers of it thought that they were geniuses and that no one else knew how to do this. So when you asked superplastically formers in Taiwan if they could do this for us, no, because this was secret military technology. And this, I think, is one very big hurdle for open innovation, is that, of course, there will be proprietary stuff that we cannot share with our competitors. And we need to know exactly what that is. And right now, all companies think that 90% of what they know is just so fantastic that the competitors have no idea about how to do that. But the truth is that actually maybe 70 or up to 90% of what you do, everyone else in the industry knows how to do. But you don't share that because you think they don't know. So this is a prerequisite, I think, to accelerate open innovation. Another thing is just being able to make decisions and anchoring things. So in order to bond this object, At that point, no one had bonded such a high dynamic stress area before. So a lot of aerospace things were bonded, and planes are very, very easy to bond. The wings, they just sit still. They don't flap. So it's just static forces. So you don't have high dynamic stress loads. But on a plane, if you look at a final on Tour de France and look down towards the bottom bracket, there's this weird 8 that's being drawn 3D in the air, and those forces are just humongous. So how do we bond such an area where no one had done it before? And we just looked around, and the problem was not that we didn't get an answer. The problem was that we got so many answers. Who do you listen to? I mean, that is another challenge. If we had chosen to weld, well, then we just look, how well certified are you and what are you certified for? These kind of things, these kind of mechanism you need to implant in open innovation before it's going to be impactful on a huge scale.
So in a sense, you can just drown in information that could just like suck up all your time, sort of sorting through all the ideas that have been submitted to you.
You can drown in it, and also you can also have the problem that people don't go very deep. You know,
right.
There is a reason for Microsoft being a leading provider of platform and not Linux. There are also some incentive structures that you need to look at. Although you could argue that the other product is better, there are still some other things that need to be addressed.
Right. Let's talk about some of the challenges in open innovation. What have you folks seen as major hurdles in trying to make this work?
Beth? A couple of thoughts. I mean, following on Jan Martin's comments, I think you have to look at open innovation as a wide spectrum. It doesn't fit neatly into one box. I mean, we've been partnering with universities forever. That's a form of open innovation. In the past few years, we've had venture funds our own internal venture funds, and we've even brought startups into our research labs to co-collaborate. And my point is that we've needed to go on that journey to understand where IP issues, how do you manage it. I think we wouldn't have been ready to take on this big sort of platform saying, come on world, tell us what you need to do, had we not been through that journey and understood some of the IP issues, understanding the evaluation issues. That being said, you're not going to do a challenge or a contest all the time and have 4,000 ideas and expect that they're going to be 4,000 brilliant ideas, that you have the manpower and the resources. Frankly, we were overwhelmed. We had external, internal research lab, engineers, external folks coming together, but it's a lot as I said, it's going to take us 12 months to really evaluate. Even if you say a third of the ideas we felt were viable, it's going to take a year to fully evaluate what we want to do with them and what the partnership opportunities. So you don't go into this lightly. It's a big commitment. The other thing I think you have to learn is it's very iterative. You have to keep working at it. You have to assume. Part of it is just sort of figuring out where the capabilities are. How do you align the right resources together? So it's not just, boom, we're done, let's move on to the next thing. You have to give it time to breathe.
Let's talk about the gnarly issue of intellectual property rights with open innovation. Kohei, you had some thoughts on that.
Yes. Well, intellectual property is a big issue because, for instance, before I came here, I was visiting vice president from Creative Commons, asking if there is a solution to sort of clear house to make sure that user innovations are not in infringement of someone else's intellectual property. And if you do the patent search, I mean, of course, you got to Google patent, but it'll still cost something. So, and also, there are many ideas that have commercial value, yet they are not patentable, and it's not protected by copyrights. So how do we protect these ideas and concepts that are not patentable, yet they have a commercial value? And there aren't any solution to that. So although people are creating, making some creative capital or intellectual capital, there aren't any way to protect them when you monetize them. So I think there is a big solution space for that.
Right. Anybody else here on the panel have thoughts on the intellectual property problem? Beth, I'm sure you have teams of lawyers mulling this stuff over.
We're well lawyered, that's for sure. I mean, I think, as I said, it's been an evolution to this point, and I think you have to be very clear what your brief is, what you're trying to accomplish. So you have to set some rules up front. I think one of the things we continue to find is sometimes people, if you're a big company, you want access to what GE can do, but sometimes people are afraid to talk to us about the ideas because they're afraid they're going to get lost. They don't quite know where to go in the system. So part of what you have to do is just build the rapport, build the partnerships, which is why some of these, coming in through a challenge and then saying, let's work together for a while. Let's figure out what might be possible before we actually sign we'll sign non-disclosures, but let's not get married. Let's see how we work together. Let's build up a base of trust so you feel comfortable. So some of it is more of the partnership touch pieces as opposed to heavy lawyering right up front.
Right, so you endorse cohabitation before marriage.
Absolutely, absolutely. With some maybe good prenups before you do that.
Get those lawyers in there. Marissa, I'm assuming that everything that happens at Google stays at Google, as far as if you're working on Google time, it belongs to Google.
I mean, certainly that's true for 20% time. But I will say one of the interesting challenges, especially around some of our open source work, is deciding what's in the platform and what's part of feature enhancements. So Android's wonderful because people can take Android, they can customize it, put their own user interface on it, market it on a new piece of hardware or a new phone. But then the question, really comes if they've stumbled onto an idea that really belongs as part of the core platform. Making that transition is sometimes a difficult line to draw, and I think that we've done it well so far. But that's really where some of the trick lies in terms of open source. Is you sometimes see good ideas grow up in the ecosystem. They're out on the branches, and you've got to decide, okay, what do you bring into the trunk of the tree so you can keep iterating through. So we're now we name each of our versions of Android after a dessert that maps to that letter of the alphabet. So we're currently on gingerbread. So we have, I think that's which is version 7 of Android. And so as we've gone through these different versions, each of them bring in new capabilities, and deciding what those capabilities are, how to support these future ideas we may not even have invented yet, and also trying to understand where to draw the boundaries around the platform versus the feature enhancements.
Let's talk about some unintended consequences. Martin, did you have any thoughts on where this thing could go off the rails in ways that you don't anticipate?
Yeah, of course. I think another thing you have to look at with regards to what we were talking about with IP is also that a way that inventors today protect their inventions is by them being semi-crazy. So, and the first year, there's this first mover thing that people believe if you move first, then you earn a lot of money. Actually, most of the time, if you move first, you lose a lot of money because you spend 10 years trying to convince the world that this vision that we should no longer ride horses but cars, drive cars or whatever, is actually worthwhile pursuing. So these their IPs are often protected in them just being out there. But another thing I want to say though is I think if you see open innovation not as just a crowdsourcing but really fundamentally open source, what I see happening now is that the world of digital, just binary 0 and 1s, that world is moving over to the three-dimensional world. The advantage with writing 0 and 1 it's that it's almost free to replicate. That it is not as when you get a physical product. And I think what Kohei is making is one step towards taking a culture we know from digital media onto the physical world of industrial products. And I think if you imagine a scenario not too far in the future, we will actually be able to evolve and have these kind of MIT Fab Lab-ish factories that we can install wherever the customer is. So that is kind of one of the big visions right now that, for instance, we do agriculture directly in the city where people live. and so on. And that is also going to happen with producing products. There's still some time for it to happen, but there are two very, very big motors for this, and not just a culture that's spreading, but also the fact that the competition from China is really, really tough for the Western world, and it's not going to get less tough. So we are incentivized to find other models. And another thing is that we have global warming happening. So shipping things all over the world all the time is not really contributing positively to CO2 emissions. So it makes sense to kind of stop shipping products all over the world. So these two things together, I think, can spur a new type of protectionism. So it would be the perfect excuse for us to stop importing from China if we talk instead of just saying we are working against you, say we are working for a better world where everyone can make their own product more or less at home, and we want to make the planet greener. Hence, we will tax your products to death. That is, I think that this is a very likely scenario, and I think the ones that we today kind of point fingers at and saying, look, they don't respect our intellectual property, they will be the one fighting the hardest to protect these intellectual properties in not so many decades in the future.
Okay. We really should throw this out for questions. We really don't, we could talk on this all day. Questions out there? This is an open-ended, yes.
Hello, I'm Rowan Gormley from Naked Wines. It's a question for Marissa, really. Do you find that you need to reward people financially for innovation? Or is the ability to work on their own project reward enough?
I certainly think getting to work on a project of your own design and vision is a big reward. That said, the tech sector is very competitive this way, because if someone has a good idea, they could go outside and start their own company or take it to another company. And so from that perspective, you do need to make sure that you're really investing in your employees. One, really giving them some financial rewards. So we have some concepts like this. We call them Founders Awards, where every now and then we give teams that have really achieved something amazing a founder-style reward, as if they had founded their own company in terms of payout. And also we need to make sure that with the really good ideas that they get the resources that they would have gotten otherwise, right? So you can imagine if they would go out and raise venture capital and ultimately decide, okay, well, I want to grow my project this fast, or I want to scale it this quickly. We need to make sure that they have resources to really succeed. So I think it's all three things. It's getting to contribute to your own vision, the financial rewards of being a founder, which you need to provide for, and you also need to make sure they have the resources to really execute the project.
And this is not just an innovation, this is a retained talent strategy. Other questions? Here.
Bill Gross from Idea Lab. I have a similar question for Kohei. Is there any financial compensation, say, to the people who contributed to the Lego project? Or do you know of any crowdsourced project where individuals get financial compensation?
Well, the first user will receive 1% from top price, so as a royalty. I didn't show it to you, but there's a user from Muji's case. She's receiving $25,000 a year for last consecutive 10 years. It's not bad. If there are other contributors that initial user thinks that should receive royalty, they can split the share as if it were a company, a micro company. And I think that kind of trend are coming from users that they wanted to share the royalty if they contribute, because one person is not enough to make something happen.
Yes, over here.
It's Robert Thieleke from Focus. Following the financial issues right now, I want to know how sustainable the open innovation could be, because rewarding 1% of the people who got the ideas leaves 99% out, and they are frustrated, and more and more companies do this, the more and more people get frustrated, so in the end you will end up with nothing in it.
So you're disappointed if you've submitted an idea, you don't win. It's like buying a lottery ticket and you're never the winner.
I think that's a real issue. It's something we're confronting all the time. Some of the ideas that are just too early stage for a company like ours or a venture capital firm to do anything with, we've actually teamed now with universities and governments, with like ARPA-E and some of the governments in Europe to say, can we assign these ideas to you? Can you help them find a home in a research venue? So that's some of the ways. I'd say one other thing it makes me think about, we're sort of confronted some of the biases in the system. We've brought all kinds of different points of view of people to look at the ideas, but I would say our system so far, this open platform, has probably favored developed world thinkers and entrepreneurs more than developing. We don't yet know how to assess some of the business models, how to think about bringing to market, language issues. You know, so right now we're starting to go back and say, let's focus on China, let's focus on India, let's have a different kind of a brief and a different expectation in terms of what success means. So those would be two answers to that question.
Did you have something?
Yes, can I also add? I think the open system will be sustainable for longest time because the system itself will search for the incentive system to sustain itself. And the way that most of the systems are run right now are not taking form in a contest. In a contest, you only have winner, very few winners. But if you can find more participatory processes where people can contribute in different ways that they're good at, I think they could get their rewards in different ways. So it is an incentive systems that needs to be built in the open platform system. Then people will be more willing to make this system survive.
I would also just offer the observation that I think that just as culturally we're going through a shift where there's just a lot more participation. David Kelly from IDEO came up with this idea, or I think he called it idea brokers versus idea fountains. And we used to live in a culture where you'd have an idea and you kind of broker it. And you decide who do you want to share your idea with, and you kind of follow it around to make sure you got credit for it and it went just your way. And if you look now, especially given the very open culture in a lot of companies, how things move, the internet, technology, there's a lot more of idea fountains, right? Where you throw out ideas and you just hope that maybe you'll have a chance to work on them, maybe someone else will pick it up and run with it. And in that kind of culture, I think there's a lot less frustration. So because you're constantly throwing off ideas and you're not so busy following your idea around to see what happens with it. You're on to the next idea because maybe that one took root, maybe it didn't. And it's sort of interesting because he would make this comment that he would go into companies and the idea fountains would actually start getting disproportionate credit. People would say, oh, well, that's a good idea. Where did it come from? And they'd be like, oh, must be from George. George always has good ideas, right? And so there's this interesting cultural shift of how to handle ideas and how to think about them.
Well, unfortunately, we're going to have to wrap this up and take the conversation into the cafe, I guess. Our time is up. But thanks so much. This has really been great. You've been terrific, and lots of stuff still to chew on that we'll think about for the next couple days here. But thank you. Thank you, Linda.
Bravo, un applause.